Okay, our second step in this painting process is to create a burnt umber underpainting for our color. So here I've taken my drawing, and with just burnt umber, I've gone over and mapped out again the principal lights and shadows in paint now, but just burnt umber. And I'm really concentrating on doing two primary things at this point. One is I'm using the burnt umber to show the principal contrast that I see. So in other words, up here when I look, I want to show both the difference between light and shadow here, but also the fact that this local value is darker than over here, right? So over here, I've shown that I've got this darker light, lighter shadow, but the light is darker than what's behind it, okay? So like with this ball here, if I look over here, and that looks really light, right, compared to this, but what I want to show primarily is the difference between light and shadow, and the fact that this is a light against, if I look at it from here, you can see that it's a light against this dark, but this light is very much like the light in the background, right? So this light is light compared to this dark, but I've just left it the same values here. So we're just trying to create the principal contrast. Again, down here, I've got the difference between light and shadow on the object, but I see that this is also a dark against the light background, and so I've put in a lighter burnt umber tone. And I've done that just by diluting the burnt umber, not by putting white into it, but just by putting a little bit more water into it. With the burnt umber, since you're going to be moving these values around a little bit or adjusting them, it's good to put in the retarder if you've got it, and then to dilute it with water as you need something lighter rather than using white paint. You can use white paint, but there's no reason really to get into that. The other thing that I'm trying to do at this step is to, in value, to really allow like values to join, like not to get too caught up in separating the objects. So say like in here, this value on the shadow is very much like, it's not the same, but it's like the value behind it. Or this value over here in the shadow of the ball is like, it's somewhat like the value behind it. You know, this is very much like this value. So wherever I see similarities in value, I'm gonna go ahead and just let them connect and join at this point. And what that does is it just gives you a greater sense of the unity of these different objects and how they're kind of working together and flowing together, rather than constantly see them as separate objects that don't have anything to do with one another. Through value, we can see how they're similar and how they're actually visually connecting with one another. All right, so this is step 2, and you can use your white to do little corrections if you feel like you need to do that, but allow both the lights and the shadows to join at this point. So again, the lights as well. I'm just letting like values join, letting like values join in here. Wherever you can just let those things connect and flow together at this stage, at this early stage, it's nice. You can also do a full burnt umber rendering. In other words, do the actual values that you see. That would be a slightly more complex underpainting. You can do that if you want to. In other words, look a little bit more closely at all the relative values and try to duplicate that just with burnt umber, but it's not necessary. As long as you kind of get this idea of flow between like values, and if you get the principal contrast established between light and shadow, and between important say like light differences or shadow differences as well, that's enough. You don't have to do a full burnt umber